Welcome to the Bend Don't Break podcast. We are powered by The Source, Ben's locally owned media company and weekly newspaper. This podcast is our eddy in the rushing waters of local journalism. We are glad that you're taking some of your time to listen to us chat with the people who shape our local community. Support us through our member program at bensource.com.
Thank you to our presenting sponsor, RE/MAX Key Properties, a family-owned full-service real estate brokerage specializing in residential, luxury, commercial, new construction, and ranch and land properties. Their new state-of-the-art facility at 42 Greenwood Avenue is a modern, collaborative space and the new home of the Bend Don't Break podcast recording studio.
I'm Aaron Schweitzer, publisher of The Source and producer of this Bend Don't Break podcast. Today, we are excited to welcome Scott Larson, newly appointed president and CEO of Visit Central Oregon. Seasoned leader in destination management, Scott brings over a decade of experience promoting mountain towns and rural communities across the West. Originally from Nashville, he has deep roots in the region, having spent childhood vacations skiing Mount Bachelor and biking through Sunriver, not some river. Now based in Bend, Scott is passionate about using tourism as a tool for economic development and community connection across Central Oregon. Scott, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron, for having me.
So we were chatting that you're originally from Nashville before Nashville was cool.
Yeah.
How long you grew up in Nashville?
I did. I spent the first 16 years of my life in Nashville.
Okay.
So, it's funny when I tell people I grew up in Nashville, I always have to say it was before Nashville was Nashville. It's got a little bit of a different ring to it these days.
Yeah.
There's parts of town now when you go back that had bars in the windows when I was a kid, and now they're, up and coming restaurants and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, we produced an event in Nashville. What I remember about Nashville now is cranes everywhere.
Yep.
Like that place is booming so big that the whole skyline is just more construction product going up into the air. And
yeah, it's really changed a lot.
And then the other striking thing about it that I remember was just unbelievable number of bachelorette parties happening.
Yep.
Like it's bachelorette. For those that don't know, it is Southern Belle Bachelorette capital of the world.
It has become the Bachelorette capital. Yeah. It wasn't when I was a kid. One of the things I remember growing up was it wasn't uncommon to see country music stars all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you still see a little bit of that now, but it was a much more low-key, much more casual vibe back then. I remember seeing Keith Urban at a Starbucks one day after church. I remember meeting Eric Clapton in a record store, and it was like just not a big deal.
Yeah.
And now it's changed a lot.
Yeah. Still fun town though. I had a very
Broadway.
good time there. Yep, going down that strip, and the music was great. Every one of those bars was happening, and I know that's probably changed quite a bit too, but it certainly is vibrant.
Yeah, it is. It's a fun city now.
So 16 years, and then where's your arc take you from there? And
yeah, so at that juncture, we moved to Denver, Colorado in 2006, and my dad was changing jobs at the time to a different hospital, and they're still down there. You want to talk about places that have changed a lot.
Right.
Denver and the suburbs of Denver.
No, I'm not a fan of Denver, so we won't deep dive Denver.
I don't know that they are anymore either, to be totally fair. Back then it was pretty easy to jet up and down I-70 and ski and do the outdoor rec thing. But I was there for a bit, finished school, went to college, and then out of college, I guess the year before I graduated, I spent the summer interning in Vail, which was sort of my first taste of a mountain town, and in terms of being a resident. And then it was after graduation, I had opportunities in Steamboat and Vail, and you could see the writing on the wall back then that I-70 was going to become this thing. And I said, Steamboat seems pretty rad. I think I'll give that a shot, and got sucked in. Still love that community to death.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I've skied there, and I've mountain biked. It's a good size.
It is. I love that town. I love that community. And that was really for me. I took any job I could get at that stage, right? Yeah. But I worked for the ski resort for a bit, and I think that was my intro into. When I graduated college, I had this idea that I wanted to go into the ski industry, and I wanted to do something with with marketing or something with a ski focus. And I learned through doing sales and marketing for a ski resort that you actually don't ski a lot when you work for a ski resort.
Right.
And I went, I don't know if this is I was trying to ski 50, 60 days a year. And I was like, I don't know if this is the right path. And it just so happened that, right around that transition period, when I was getting frustrated with the resort, there was an opening at the Chamber.
Oh, okay.
And as it usually goes in this industry, your really small communities tend to do chamber events, destination marketing, economic development. All of that lives under one hood.
Right.
And that was the case in Steamboat. And so I did marketing for the chamber, but also marketing for the destination.
Okay.
And so I have a tendency to look at everything because of that foundation. I have a tendency to look at everything as sort of not just the what, but the why.
Yeah.
And the economic piece of it. It's not just about heads and beds. It's about the why. It's about what does that do for a community.
Yeah.
So,
and when you were there, so how long were you at the Chamber?
I was there for almost 4 years.
Okay.
And it really served as a foundational piece for me. And you were able to see, through the marketing that we were doing, through the events we were producing, you could see the economic lift on the local business community. Yeah. And that's one of the things that gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. How'd you launch from there to end up in our little sleepy hamlet here?
Yeah. So when I was there, just thinking about a map, when I was going there, working there, my now wife was just across the state line in Wyoming, going to grad school at the University of Wyoming, which is in Laramie. And it's funny. Just last week, when I tell people I moved here from Laramie, Wyoming, a lot of times I say I moved here from Wyoming and I didn't move from a town called Jackson, because I feel like I've got to establish that groundwork, right? But there was an opening there. We got married. We did lots of long distance stuff for a little bit there. She couldn't get a job in Steamboat. I couldn't get a job in Cheyenne. Laramie ended up having an opportunity. And so I was the executive director for Visit Laramie for a little over 5 years.
Oh, okay.
And watched that town change quite a bit. It's really, I think, right on the precipice of its next stage of growth.
Yeah.
It's about an hour from Fort Collins, 2 hours from Denver, but on the Wyoming side of the state line, college town, mountain range, ski area.
Yeah.
Really, and because it's a college town, it's a little more progressive, more vibrant, younger community.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of activity happening. And
Laramie's not on my radar. Megan, you're
totally cool.
Your radar. Is Wild Rose the climbing area close to Laramie?
Wild Rose is not,
Okay.
but we, so Vitavu, which bonus points if anybody in this room can spell that without looking it up. But that's an international climbing destination, is pretty well known. But really, I started there in spring of 19, had about 10 months before the world turned upside down, and was really working on trying to put it on the map. A lot of people look at it as a great place to stop and get gas on their way to the parks.
Right.
And I was like, dude, wait a minute. We got so much more here to do. We got so much more activity that's bubbling. And so I rebuilt it. New visitor center, new brand, new website, new team, strategic plan, like really transformed.
Was this during COVID or just before the world ended?
A lot of it happened during COVID.
Okay.
I sort of used COVID as a springboard to make some of the adjustments that I needed. There was a window there where I sort of knew we needed to make some of these changes.
And you didn't have to worry about any tourists or anything. You had some time off to reflect.
Yes and no. I mean, I think that was a challenge that a lot of Western destinations went through, right? Was everybody went, there was this like shock of, oh my gosh, we have no money. We have no visitors. There's no revenue coming in. We don't know how long this is going to last. And then we saw the effect that a lot of other Western destinations saw, where we didn't have the revenue that we were used to having, and we had 5 times as many visitors or whatever that number is.
Right.
And we were sort of forced with trying to figure that out. We also being an hour or two from the Front Range of Colorado, and approaching COVID very differently as Wyoming did versus Colorado.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, when I think of where I would go to get away from the world if it was ending, Laramie would be pretty high on the list.
We got lots of open spaces.
Yeah.
But
the zombies can't get there. Like,
no,
they
can't.
Yeah,
they can't. And
but during COVID, were you was Wyoming? I imagine Wyoming didn't lock down very hard. I mean, Oregon locked down harder than anybody in the nation. So
yeah, Wyoming.
I would look at these other states like, what's going on over there?
Yeah, Wyoming was pretty loose. It was sort of a do what you feel like you need to do type of approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm married to somebody who works in healthcare, so fortunately I had a little bit of sanity in my household.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, I think all of us as a team at that juncture felt like we had a certain level of responsibility to serve the visitors that were coming.
Yeah.
And so we adapted. We got, the big plexiglass things and we figured out how to get info to visitors. I'd rather give them information on where to camp and how to camp if they've never camped before than just turn them loose in the woods.
Well, it still was like, I mean, those kind of activities now we know were the safest way to go through that time. And I would think being in a place like Laramie, I mean, even Bend was somewhat like that, although there was a lot of fear of a lot of tourists coming in and bringing. Yeah. But still, if you're going, getting outside and staying healthy was a pretty good route.
It was. And I think one of the things that's been on my mind lately is sort of, especially as I moved here a year ago into different state, different part of the country. It's really interesting to me to look at different communities, different states who approached COVID differently, and 5-ish years later to look at where those communities are.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a case study out there on that right now, but it's interesting to me to see, every so often I come across somebody in Oregon who says, oh, we're still recovering from the pandemic. And in Wyoming, it was like 2022, we were back above pre-COVID. And it's interesting to me. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer, but it's interesting to me to see that and look at the way that's played out in different communities in different parts of the country.
I would read that study.
But I would too. It'd be really interesting.
That. Yeah, I'd love to.
But we also saw as Wyoming, Montana, we saw the Yellowstone effect, which was nuts, and that was like a compounding factor to COVID that we went through during that time period. But I mean, we really used that as the springboard to say, all right, there's a whole bunch of people who are discovering this place for the very first time. Right. Let's make sure that we make it good. Let's make it what we want. Colorado had a lot of traffic coming up, being so close because the restrictions were so different.
Right.
We would see people who would drive up just to eat dinner in a restaurant because they couldn't in Colorado. So it was a balance of welcoming those visitors, but also saying, please behave responsibly. Yeah. Please don't be a jerk.
Well, my wife and I, during the pandemic, checked out doing an event. We're also event producers as well as newspaper publishers. And we went to Helena to look at doing there. And so we drove through, Eastern Oregon into Idaho, or up to Washington, tipped into Washington, then over to Idaho, then into Montana. So we were getting really different approaches to how people, we'd go into a gas station, it'd be the Wild West. You'd get to a restaurant, everything would be locked down. You'd go a couple hours, everybody be just like normal. I'm like, man, there are waitresses here. We're getting table service. So yeah, it was all different. And I know a lot of people must have been, I can imagine the effect of being a Colorado and a Wyoming where you had a lot of people going, well, let's go there. They're open for their restaurants are open.
Yeah, it was a really interesting time. And we just tried to, we looked for every opportunity that we could during that time period to sort of move the needle forward and move the ball down the field. And I'm really excited to see where that town continues to grow. I think they're caught in a lot of the same push-pull that a lot of other communities are, where they're trying to grow, they're trying to evolve, they've got the opportunity to do so, but they're also trying to preserve what they've been and that identity, the character, the small town charm.
Sure.
And that's a really hard balance to find if it even exists.
Well, it used to exist here, and now we've kind of blown past that stop sign. We're on to bigger and better things. But so you decided to go for a bigger. I mean, you're in a bigger pond now, and how does that suit you?
It's been great. That was a very, very fast transition. I don't know how many people know this, but was recruited for the position and went from first call to job offer in less than 3 weeks.
Wow.
And then bought a house, sold a house in 30 days and started work in tourism in Central Oregon in July. And just like,
yeah, 2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just like, you want to
because
talk about...
in the bio it still said newly appointed, and I was like, I know he's still carrying that moniker around, but I think you're over your 1 year now. So.
I am. I don't think I can claim being new anymore.
You're like a long-term Bend resident now. A year.
I don't know if I'm quite allowed yet to say that I'm a local. I don't think I've earned that yet.
Right.
But yeah. I mean, it's been great. It's a much bigger destination. It behaves a lot. With us being the regional DMO, right? We cover 3.5 counties. We claim the southern portion of Wasco County, and it behaves a lot more like a state DMO than a city or county type of DMO. And so you've got different challenges, different opportunities. You've got DMOs all across the region, large and small. And so there's a lot that we've used year one to sort of recalibrate and reset on a lot of things, try and right that ship so that in year 2 and 3, we can really start to roll some things out.
Sure. What do you, most people are aware, or maybe they're not as listeners, but you've got Visit Bend, which is a DMO kind of inside your DMO.
Right.
And then there's you guys serving more of a countywide destination plan.
Right.
What are some of to give people a sense of your area, what are your north, south, east, and west boundaries?
Sure. So we go as far north as Tye Valley, as far south as Lapine. And then we cover, east, west, we cover Jefferson, Crook, unincorporated Deschutes, Warm Springs.
Do you do promotion for Prineville as well? I mean, I know they have their own,
we do.
But you also cover that.
They're in that
area?
umbrella, so to speak.
Wow.
It's a pretty vast region geographically, but it's also got, that's one of the blessings and curses, I think, right, is that you literally in a lot of ways without not, like, we don't have an ocean, but we have almost everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And we've got some pretty world-class product in that bubble. We've also got people who are super savvy marketers and tourism folks, and then you've got folks that are at the opposite end of the spectrum. And it's just, you've got huge DMOs like Visit Bend, and you've got really, really, really little ones that are just starting to figure out what this looks like. And so lots of nuances, challenges, opportunities to navigate as we sort of partner and figure out how we navigate this as a region for the long haul.
I mean, obviously in the publishing business, we have to be, ear to the ground on any slight digital change. But for you in the destination management business, I mean, you're trying to reach people in all different crevices and crannies of the digital environment, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I had to keep up with the local news in every single community and county we serve, and every city council and every single commissioner and school board and sheriff, and just like I'd never sleep,
Right.
So
there's a lot of people in our office like that. So, yeah.
I try really hard to, I always think of the quote, what you choose to focus on is just as important as what you choose not to focus on. Right. And trying to stay at that 30, 40, 50,000 foot level, and then really lean on whoever our local counterpart is there, whoever the local resources are. I'm out in the region a ton, shaking hands and meeting with folks, but it'd be impossible for me or our team to get that far in the weeds in every single community that we serve.
How big is your team now?
Yeah, so we've got 8 full-time.
Okay.
And then we've got a handful of part-timers that are sort of your information, front desk type folks. We've done a little bit of reduction in staffing over the last year. Most of that was driven not by financial needs, but more so by strategic plan. Okay. when I started last year, a couple of key questions. I said, where's our strategic plan? Where's our marketing plan? Looking for some general guiding documents, and learned that we didn't have a strategic plan. So
could be a problem as you come in.
Well, I mean, I think,
or an opportunity. That's probably the
depends
better
on how
way
you
to
want to look at it,
like,
right?
Hey, great, no strategic plan. That's awesome.
Yeah, that means I don't have to follow any rules, right?
Right.
No, but led the organization through that. I think we convened probably close to 50 stakeholders across the region, in that geographic area, to create a 5-year strategy and a 5-year roadmap. And, within that, you can sort of say, okay, well, I really like John Smith on my team, but I don't know if they fit into this plan, and the board created this plan. So we kind of got to map the team to the plan and the budget to the plan if we want to be successful.
Right. Sure.
So we've reduced our footprint just a little bit in that regard, but we do the best we can to try and serve. I said this to somebody the other day. We report to a lot of masters with a lot of different needs, and I think in a lot of ways, there's a lot of folks that, like, COVID really opened the door for a lot of slippery, loosey-goosey ships that just sort of drifted.
Sure.
Not a lot of clarity, not a lot of direction, and so really have spent the last year trying to bring the board, bring the staff, bring a lot of that stuff back to port. To get situated.
One of the big trends in your industry is that shift from, DMO being marketing to more management. And do you, and given that your funding is primarily coming from the people who are championing marketing,
right,
while the community you serve is championing management, is that still, it was such a big buzzword 5 years ago, and the whole shift was happening, and we're seeing marketing on behavior and bend and all the other stuff like that. Is that still trending? Is that something that, that you guys are involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. And you really, you hit the nail on the head. There's this constant push-pull. I was talking to some colleagues about this last week of, I'm trying to be cognizant of my residents who vote for my elected officials who approve my budget. And I completely agree. We need to talk about management, but then there's also that challenge of my funders are private sector. And for them, there's no such thing as too much. And so you're trying to find this balance. We do give some grants back through things like the Future Fund program. And I think it's really important that I was really focused on this in Laramie because it was wasn't quite as far along on this growth path, right? But I had the lens of Steamboat behind that, and I was like, guys, let's not follow some of those things. Let's keep an eye on management. Let's make sure that we're cognizant of resident sentiment and things like that. And I think it's really important that we constantly try to give back to the community that we promote and ultimately that we serve. I think that's a critical piece. And what I would love to see is have those two things tied together somehow going forward so that as we grow, because I think that's the other thing that oftentimes gets missed is people say, well, we need to spend X% more on management. But the challenge is when you think about a grant program, in order for me to continue to grow that grant program, I sort of have to market by default to grow the funding. And so you can't do one without the other.
Well, that's always, to me, the interesting push is that, people will push back on tourism for the most part, I believe, because their livelihood is not connected to tourism. But if your livelihood's connected to tourism, you definitely want a good DMO promoting and growing because you can see it. We went through COVID and everybody, for various reasons didn't want tourism here. But at the same time was like, watching as all the restaurants were winking out and, you might be able to get on the trail, but when you got back, no one was in the brewery that was about to close as well. So I always think it's an interesting dynamic. And also the idea that if for some reason you guys were to just take a big long nap for a couple months, we would all of a sudden revert back. People are coming, part of it is like managing and marketing to these people so that they understand why they're coming here.
Right. Well, and oftentimes too, something we say in the industry a lot is that great places to visit are great places to live because they have the amenities that draw people there as visitors, right? And so understanding that picture. And the other thing that I think oftentimes gets missed is we talk a lot about the direct correlation of a restaurant, a hotel, something like that, that's directly tied to the industry. But looking at, just as an example, calendar 2024, something like $1.3 billion was spent by people who don't live here, which lowers the tax burden for all of us, right? And so whether you work in a restaurant or a mechanic shop, there's some sort of direct or indirect benefit that visitor is offsetting. So, that's something that I think oftentimes gets missed too, is that in the end, it really does benefit everybody in some way, shape, or form.
How much work do you guys do with, because I know Redmond is in your area, obviously. How much work do you guys do with the airport? And I'm always curious about that correlation between your marketing and you're trying to get them here. And you got to market where there's flights. So as they expand flights, your marketing portfolio probably opens up. What's that correlation look like?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to, obviously we collaborate a lot with Visit Bend, and I bring that up because one of the things we're working on right now is tightening that relationship to better understand when you're marketing in Portland, a drive market, or the Valley, we're heavy on marketing in the flight markets. We don't want to be competing with each other in the same market for the same customer. So that's a huge piece of it. The other thing that I think is interesting about the Redmond Airport is that during peak summer season in the summer, it's about 50-50 traffic going through there, local versus visitor.
Oh, okay.
The rest of the year, it skews 60% local and 40% visitor. And so
50-50 seems high to me.
It's really, I mean, it's an amenity.
As tourist destinations go, is that a good mix, 50-50, or is that surprising to you?
I'm happy with the fact that our residents get value out of that. And there's always that challenge of, you want to fly to the east and you got to leave at 5 a.m. We're constantly working on trying
I'm dealing with that tomorrow. Actually,
we're constantly trying to get more flights out of there that, I would love to see a Chicago. I would love to see Minneapolis. I would love to see Dallas year round, something that goes beyond Denver, right? In terms of getting people east. One connection to the East Coast would be fantastic. But I love the fact that it's pretty well utilized by our residents, and yet is still a visitor amenity at the same time. So, I mean, we try to divide and conquer that marketing effort with Visit Bend where we can.
Well, we are almost at the end of our time. I know there's tons of things we didn't touch on. Anything that you're working on that you want people to know about?
I'm really excited to, in my second full year, because I can't claim the new card anymore, right? I'm excited to build on the momentum that we've created in year one. Year one was a lot of level setting, recalibrating. I think that puts us in a good position for year two. We've got a new strategic plan, I think a more focused staff, more engaged board. The marketing should level up here. I think that we're in a great spot to continue to build that momentum. And I've also pushed the team a little bit to see where we can grow those grant programs as well. Marketing co-ops for local DMOs like Redmond and others. I'm excited for what we have coming down the pipe in year two.
Great. Well, Scott, thanks for cutting out of your busy schedule. It's summer, so I know things are
There's
popping.
A lot moving and grooving right now.
But I appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you having me.
This has been the Bend Don't Break podcast. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more of it, go to the bendsource.com website, click on the member link, and donate to keep these kind of things rolling. Scott, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Aaron.
You've been listening to the Bend Don't Break podcast, powered by The Source Weekly. To read, hear, and see more of what we do, go to bendsource.com.